Thanks, Madam Chair. And certainly I've appreciated the comments I've heard in this hearing and raising probably more questions than answers. I come from a state of Montana that places great value in privacy. In fact, I might argue we have different individual privacy expectations, perhaps than people in large urban areas. That's why people like to live in states like Montana. I've also been talking with members of our state legislature who are interested in addressing these privacy concerns at the state level. And for Ms. Gilligan, I think it probably relates to what's going on with the FAA. Certainly I commend the FAA for taking action on the certification, on the airworthiness aspects of these commercial unmanned systems in the notice of proposed rulemaking on small commercial unmanned aerial systems, but I do have concerns about the privacy aspects associated with remotely piloted aircraft, many of which are not being used commercially. Back to what Senator Booker was really distinguishing between commercial use and non-commercial use, and are therefore not subjected to the proposed rulemaking. So my question is, does the FAA think that there is an appropriate role for local regulation of non-commercial or hobbyist uses? And if so, what might they be?
Senator Daines, I'm not sure that the FAA has a position on local control. What I do know is that in the last reauthorization, though, Congress gave us very clear direction to allow model and hobbyist kinds of operations without additional regulatory restraint. We have complied with that. We're working with the modelers community to allow the use of what they call community standards, and the American Modelers Association is taking the lead and providing to their members information about how they can properly operate safely and remain recreational users of this kind of technology.
What's your opinion, I guess, as a professional, someone who's in it every day, knows a lot more about it than I do? Do you think there would be a role, though, in allowing the states? Do you think that's a good idea, to allow the states to have an ability to regulate the non-commercial use?
Sir, we are always concerned about local regulations that may affect the national airspace system. What we do know, and what Congress has been clear about, is that we need a national asset in the airspace. And those who operate broadly in the airspace need to know that what occurs in one location is safe and consistent with what can occur in other locations. I'm not exactly sure whether or how a state or local entity might be able to carve something out to address modelers or to address recreational users. They may well be able to do it, but we'd want to look closely at whether and how they did that.
Let me ask Mr. Vanderwerf here at the American Farm Bureau, and certainly I know some of our ag folks back home can see the value of finding a lost cow when we have more cows than people back home, which I'm grateful for. But in your testimony, you question who owns and controls the data collected by an unmanned system. And the example you used with a contractor flying the unmanned system and potentially being able to share or even sell that data with outside parties, including the federal government, frankly, is chilling. What do you think is the best means of regulating this data? And more importantly, how can we ensure enforcement?
Well, thank you for the question, Senator. When we speak about the issue of data privacy, I guess I would refer you to our overall stance as American Farm Bureau and as agriculturalists in terms of our data privacy. We are concerned about what is being collected, who potentially is viewing it, whether it was EPA or third-party environmental groups. We believe that that data ultimately belongs to the farmer who created it, and that they should have the right to essentially determine who is able to use that data and for what purposes they would use it for.
Any thoughts how we ensure enforcement?
I would refer that to the full written comments we will have with these proposed rules that will be out in the next short time. I would have to get back with you on that one specifically.
Okay, thank you. For Mr. Morris, has the NTIA explored how the ownership of data will be addressed?
So, Senator, our process is really just at the very beginning. We have put out a request for comment, and I certainly expect that one of the issues raised will be kind of an ownership question. Now, we're not in a position to affect the legal rules that actually, you know, would affect ownership, but certainly in terms of looking at best practices that that address issues like the farmer, you know, farm concern about data. That certainly is a topic that we expect will be discussed in our process.
Okay, thank you. I'm out of time.